Yo, what is going on, CoD Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder, and in today's video, I thought it would be nice to go over the new KvK map for SoS Winter is Upon Us, which is the second storyline, Calling of the Courage being the first. Now, in this one, we're supposed to be getting a hybrid mix of Tamaris and Bellerin, all basically getting congealed, if you will, into one. And so we're going to take a look at Zone 1, Zone 2, Zone 3, look at maybe how some pass openings might work, give some thoughts, see if anything has changed or anything is different, and then, yeah, should be a good time. As always, if you enjoyed the content, make sure you throw us up, because it helps out a lot. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive in. We'll first start off by kind of just doing a quick look around. So it does look like it is a circular. Oh, this is interesting. So they have like this wider area that I guess they just kind of extended the land here. Okay, interesting. If we're looking at the mini map top right corner, we can see here that it's basically a circular map. You can see the two kind of stick out points along with the neutral zones, right? So in this case, we have O's Tauren, which looks like is the neutral PvP or the Zone 2. We then have Argelin, which is the second Zone 2. And then we have Skuden, which is the third. Looks like we also have, once the level 2 passes open, so it looks like level 1 passes will open up the Zone 2s, level 2 passes will open up the statues, so that way the two sides can still fight against each other and get a little bit of early PvP. So that looks pretty consistent. Spires looks to be 4, I believe, in the Zone 1s, and it looks like we got 2, 3 bears, we got 2 giants and magma. What do we have in the neutral zones? So it looks like we got 2 thunder rocks, or Zapdos, if you will, and then we have 4 level 2 spires, and it looks like they're still kind of going with this consistent laning phase or pathing from one gate to the next, where you can see kind of this north path from this spire to this one. Then we have a south path. However, it does look as though the southern side here is going over the plateau. It doesn't look, this is most likely probably cut off, I would imagine. Yeah, it is. So they're basically going to definitely have to go through that. Okay, if we look at the second Zone 2 in Osterin, looks like pretty similar. So we have 4 level 2 passes, we got 2 rocks. A little bit different though here. This one is actually interesting because the spires are on the first ramp, which means you probably would get fighting. Interesting. So the fighting would probably happen maybe somewhere here in the ravine. Down on the ramp over here, it looks like there's actually a way where maybe you can get around here, This looks like a choke. Oh, it is. Interesting. So there's a choke there. That looks like this can go all the way up. Oh, it can. Look at this. So you can go all the way up over here and all the way around here. Oh, interesting. So it's kind of like a third path, even though there's no spires there. Interesting that they opted to create a path to get through where there is no direct spire access to kind of get around that, even though they made it basically a longer way. And I almost wonder if they had something like that in the Calling of Courage map. I don't know if I paid too close of attention, at least to recall that right now. But that is an interesting, when you just think about map design, I kind of like that, where it's like they're giving you the shorter path, which is the ones that are going through a spire or from a spire to another one. But then you have a longer path that would still allow for you to get to the other side, but you just don't have to worry about a spire. That's interesting, kind of maneuvering or finagling, if you will, with kind of a short and a long path, and kind of giving a pro and a con to it. Okay, then we have the next Zone 2 here, which I think is Argelin. And let's see here. Okay. Excuse me, a little bit late. So we have 4 level 2 spires, but the difference here is that unlike in the previous Zone 2, we have the spires that are on the inside ramp. This kind of reminds me of the S1 Plus or S1 Plus Plus fight where we saw between Jedi and DX, for those that remember, right? Kind of the infamous Jason G. Nephisto first meeting, I believe it was at the time, along with a number of other staple and household names. And they were kind of fighting in this ravine area where they had to go down this ramp in order to get to where they were on the north side of one of the zones that they were fighting in. Geez, and I can't remember what the map. I'd have to go back and review a video. But this is interesting that they kind of opted for different positioning here on the spires. This one is okay. This is, I guess, I don't know if I want to say different, but basically the fighting looks like if you have to get here, go up here, probably would be fighting maybe around here somewhere, give or take. Okay, let's look at how the zone 3 progressions look like. So we have 2 zone 1s here, level 3 passes. It looks like there's 2 on each side. That's probably consistent for each zone 2 as well. When we get here, we have a mixture of, it looks like level 2, 3, and 4 spires. We have some hydras, probably a necro. Yeah, right there. So it looks like 2 hydras and a necro. And then we have the next ones here would be the level 4 passes. So you're still getting the same action for the adjacent zone 3s that we got on the Calling of Courage map. You see with level 4 passes, you at least get some statue fighting. I wonder if the statues are any different. Nope, they're still the same. Ah, that's rough. Hopefully they do something more with that. This is the thing, man. I love this idea of statues kind of being this mini-game opportunity where they can really diversify and just do more than kind of a single capture the flag or capture the hill kind of objective. And I've said this and I'm going to keep saying it multiple times. This space needs to be utilized more. This space, I think, needs to be double the size, and then you need to do something where maybe you put a statue over here, right? Then you put a statue over here, and you have one in the middle. And you kind of allow for this 3-tier or 3-type King of the Hill, or King of the Hill approach. You can also do something where you do a team deathmatch, right? So everyone gets in, right? For example, maybe you create like little shields or walls here, so like everyone has to pile in here, and same thing, everyone has to pile in on a similar side. And then once it opens, like once one unit goes in, then the countdown starts and the borders are up, and maybe you have 60 seconds or 2 minutes, however long it is, but a short amount of time to get as many units or troops in as possible. Once that stops, then it locks everyone in, very similar to when you're doing a behemoth raid. And you start the behemoth raid, and then everyone will is locked in, right, until your unit dies, right, or until it basically has failed. And so something like that would be cool. And then they just kind of do I guess you could kind of do like a last man standing with that. But you could also just do a team deathmatch where you don't do the boundaries and you just kind of fight it out to where one side maybe has to hit a certain kill point or something of the sort. You could even do capture the flag where like it's only calves or something like that. I don't know, just to me it almost feels like we could be a little bit more creative with the area. You could even do like a rotational King of the Hill, where if you make the space bigger, you could do one where it's like, okay, one will pop here, one will pop in a corner, maybe at the center midpoints, and then one in the middle, but you never know where it's going to go, right? It's just random, and maybe it lasts like 5 minutes, and you have to hit a certain amount of points. You can really be creative, is my point, with something like this, and it just very much feels like it's being underutilized right now. Okay. Then let's get to level 5 passes. So level 5 passes, it looks like, are going to be coming out of the zone 2s and going into the zone 3s. Okay, that's fine. Next passes we have are level 6s. If this is any indication, level 6s seem to be when the adjacent zone 3s will open, and then level 7 will bring you into the final zone. We'll talk about that in a moment. But what I do want to say here is this is a bit disappointing. Now, I can't look at the Augur Stone, sadly, because I do not have a level 16 account out of, I think, the 2 or 3 that I have right now, and unfortunately none of those are actually in or had registered for Winners Upon Us. So I'll probably hit up a kingdom at some point and just be like, hey, can I come and just post one of my scout accounts in the top or number 2 alliance for just a couple days so I can boost it up. That's what I ended up doing with I think 23 and TFS was pretty gracious to allow me, and I think the second alliance I was able to boost an account for a little bit there by just again kind of leveling it up outside of my main that I have, and I think one other that I can't recall. But I digress. The challenge that and everyone kind of knows my view at this point. I want to see the final zone open first before the adjacent zone 3s open. And I say that because the whole point of playing a KvK is to have a crescendo, is to have some kind of pinnacle, some kind of finish line that we are reaching to, or some peak point of fighting. And that's kind of what the final zone is. It's really what they've been redesigning the final zone now for a couple seasons by making consistent improvements. And if we never get an opportunity to see a full-blown fight out in the final zone in all of the KvKs, to me that's a letdown. And if the last couple seasons are any indication of this, but more importantly, the last season for Calling of Courage and the SoS storyline, we ended up seeing a number of KvKs that basically were finished by Zone 3. And obviously the most notable one, and one that I've talked about before as well, was the biggest KvK in history, the strongest KvK. That was the Nawar, BXS, TFS, and EIS group. And what happened? We saw basically 3.5 days on average of fighting throughout a 55-day season, which respectfully is a letdown. Even though, yes, you do have deads now compared to what that we didn't have those before, and they were basically fighting nonstop at the passes, we didn't really get a lot of open field fighting. There was a decent amount, but there was a lot of pass fighting. And my view is I just very much like to watch open field more than I like to watch passes. It's not to say that I think passes should be non-existent. I do think that they serve a purpose, but for me, I just believe that open field is really where it's at, and that's, I think, really where you allow the ranged PvP and one of the unique mechanics and features in the game, aside from other competitors in the Kingdom Builder space, to allow Call of Dragons to shine. And I would just like to see more of that. And so for me, the thing that sucks is that when I think about the Zone 3, and don't get me wrong, it's great to be able to make a Zone 3, but it has to feel like somewhat of a letdown when you're not able to make it to the final zone. And this is where I kind of start getting these Infinity Kingdom vibes where, and again, maybe they've changed the KvKs recently, but one of the things I very much remember early on when the KvKs were being introduced and why so many people were displeased, at least within this one area, was that the passes opened between Zone 1s first, and you could crush everyone just by going from one Zone 1 to the next Zone 1 to the next Zone 1 to the next one, and you could end a KvK before Zone 2 and Zone 3 even open, and then the whole KvK is done. And that is just sad when you think about all the people that are there that are trying to get a lot of enjoyment, want to do a lot of fighting. Now, in this case, obviously, you get to make it a little bit further, but the fact is that you're still deprived, or I should say the possibility of being deprived is there for not being able to make it into the final zone. So for me, the way I would just do it is they should have the final zone open first, right? If you want to switch these up and have this be the level 6 pass, have this be the level 7 pass, however you do it. You want to have the level 7 pass open before the level 6 pass, and then I think you need to allow something like 3 to 7 days, right? Maybe 4 to 7 days, give or take. Really allow for the building to happen in the final zone, for the fighting to happen in the final zone, and then you open up the adjacent ones right after that. I just think it would allow everyone to have that opportunity who's able to make it there to be able to experience the final zone as it should be. Anyways, with that in mind, we're moving on, I should say, to the final zone now. So let's see here. We end up having, so it looks like spires are not initially placed like we saw last season or in the updated SP2 or the Bellerin 2 season map, but it looks like they placed them a little bit farther. I guess maybe not as, I guess it is kind of somewhat circular because that is how it looked in the Calling of Courage map. It was a little bit more symmetrical and circle by its shape. This is still circular, but it looks like it's a little more spread out. However, each pass seems to have, I guess, an option on where they can go from out of there, and then we end up getting into the middle point, and we have, I don't even know how many ramps, 1, 2, 3. Shouldn't there be 4 ramps? Am I blind? Someone will probably tell me here. Let's look around. We got 1 ramp, 2 ramps. Maybe I'm just not seeing it, huh? This is weird. You have 3 ramps. That can't be right. That doesn't make any sense. Huh. Okay, interesting. So now I'm even slightly more confused. You have this plateau area where potentially you could have a lot of fighting that's happening up here, but you only allow for 3 ramps up to the plateau. Again, this feels like another missed opportunity. I think based on the amount of passes you have and the amount of lanes that you have to the plateau, that's the amount of passes that you should have. Everyone should have an equal distance to a ramp, even if you want to adjust the pathing. It needs to be the same amount of flags in order to get to the dragon, same amount of flags to get to the ramp. And I think every pass, so how many passes are there? 1, 2, 3, probably 6, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so there's 6 passes. You should have 6 ramps. Again, I don't know. This to me just feels like, once again, sadly, a missed opportunity. And I think there are some areas of improvement. Now, I don't know what the flag pathing is. We'll have to see once people end up getting there, unless someone has maybe already done the math and counted it out based on maybe just like figuring out a pixel size for what the flag is and just kind of counting it along the path. I'd love to hear if anyone has done that for each of the passes, but otherwise we'll probably get a gauge on that once people start getting to the final zone. With that in mind, that's it for me. I'd love to know what you guys think on anything we shared. How do you feel about this map compared to previous maps? Are you noticing some of the adjustments and some of the consistent improvements that they've been making? What do you think about the final zone? Do you agree with the number of ramps versus how many we're actually seeing? Would love to read. That's going to do it. As always, until next time, we'll catch you later.